Hi crafty friends, today's exciting video is full of fun Kirkland and Pottery Barn dupes made with, you guessed it, Dollar Tree items. If this is your first time here, I'm Barbara, and on this channel I love to create Dollar Tree DIYs and budget-friendly home decor. So make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Now I won't keep you waiting any longer, so let's get started. While visiting Kirkland's website, I found this two-tone square wood wall plaque on clearance for $37.47. It's 30 inches square, but I think we could make something similar for a lot less. Using one of Dollar Tree's canvases, this one measures about 8.5 inches square. I'm going to remove the hanger but keep it because I will be replacing it back on the project when we're finished. And then I'm using my staple remover, which you can find in my Amazon store in the link in my description box below, to very easily remove these staples and the canvas from the frame. I'm using one of Dollar Tree's signs. They usually have these out for every holiday, but if you don't have one, you can use the paint stir sticks from Lowe's. It is about the same width. However, the length of it, you will still be able to see the handle from the paint stick. So that's why I'm choosing to use this Dollar Tree sign. I'm going to pop it open and then remove the hanger from the sign itself. And then using my utility knife, I'm going to cut the two sides from this sign. Then I can place this underneath my frame from corner to corner to form an X on the underside of the frame. While holding that in place, I'll take a pencil and make marks on those pieces of the sign on the outside of the frame so I can use my utility knife to cut those corners off. They're very easy. You can just score it and pop it off, and then it also will help you to pull the paper off of the back. Once I have all of the corners on both pieces of that sign cut, I'm going to place these on the back side of the frame where I removed all of the staples and all the staple holes are showing. I'm going to secure that in place using some hot glue in the corners, and then for the second piece, I'll make sure I add some hot glue in the center as well. Then I can go back and trim any excess that may be showing on the outside corners and sand everything down nice and smooth. Using Waverly's Antique Wax, I'm going to go over this entire piece, but you can use whatever brown paint that you have. This is just what I had sitting closest to me. While that is still wet, I'm going to take some acrylic paint in the color khaki and very lightly go over the entire frame and then take a paper towel to blend it in. This is going to lighten it up and make it appear to be more of a wood effect. So we're going to have a faux wood look since our pieces on the center are MDF and not real wood. For the center portion of this recreated sign, I'm using this 4x4 frame from Dollar Tree. We're going to remove everything from it, including the tabs, and then I'll give this 2 coats of white chalk paint around the entire frame, front and back. Using some medium-sized craft sticks and my handheld miter shears, you can find these in my Amazon store. Again, that link is in my description box below. We're going to set it on a 45-degree angle and hold it up past the curved point of the craft stick and cut that down to have our 45-degree angle on that end, and then measuring from the long point to the other long point that we want our 45 to be on, we're going to measure that to be about 2 3/4 of an inch. After I make my mark, I can rotate the 45-degree angle to the opposite direction, line my mark up at the top point of where the blade is, cut that down, and now we have a perfect 45 on each end, and the 2 long tips measure 2 3/4 of an inch. You'll cut 4 of those down. Then sand each of the end pieces to make sure they're nice and smooth. Then taking 4 of those same craft sticks, we're going to line up 2 at the bottom end of one of those craft sticks where the two angles meet, and try to keep it as centered as possible so that the craft stick will be straight with the angles at the bottom. We'll secure those together with hot glue and let it set for a minute to let your glue set up before rotating it around and adding another straight craft stick and another angled piece at the bottom. We're going to continue to do this until we have a straight craft stick at the corners of each of our now 2 3/4 inch square in the center. Remove all the glue strands, and then we're going to go over this with the antique wax so that it will match the first frame that we painted. Make sure you get those inside edges and the backing as well. So now that everything has dried, we're going to add our white frame onto the X's on the back of the first frame, and we're going to hold that together using some hot glue. Now I only applied it to 2 corners because one of those sticks in the back sticks up a little bit higher than the other. Now we can take the piece that we just made and center it on top of our frame, hold it in place, and make marks on the inside of the very bottom frame so we can use our miter shears to cut those down so they'll sit flush on the inside of the frame on the very bottom. To hold that in place, we're going to place some hot glue under each one of those craft sticks and glue it directly to the white frame. Just make sure you let the glue set before you go to the next one so that it doesn't pop up or move around on you. Once that has set, we can flip it over and now add our sawtooth hanger back to the back just by tapping it down with a little hammer. Now let's see how well we did in comparison to Kirkland's. Kirkland's two-tone wall plaque is $37.47. My version, although it is significantly smaller, was only $4. But you can make quite a few of these and have a beautiful collection. I would love to know how well you think I did on project number 1. Number 2, at Pottery Barn's website are these beautiful hand-woven basket wall art for $399 for a set of 3. I think we can duplicate this for a lot less. Now they range in sizes from 20 inches up to 30 inches in diameter. So let's see what we can do. Using 2 Dollar Tree plates from their servingware section in 2 different sizes, I'm going to also be using some nautical rope from Dollar Tree. Now, for my recreation, I'm only going to be making 2, but these come in a pack of 4 plates, so you can make as many as you like. After removing the tape from the end of the nautical rope, I'm going to hot glue the end together so that they don't come apart, and then I'm going to fold over a tiny piece and glue it to itself and let that glue set up before we glue it to the center of our plate. Again, once we get it to the center of our plate, let that glue set up before you start wrapping it around so it doesn't move on you. Then we can very carefully hot glue the rope directly to the plate around itself, making sure that it is a nice tight fit and it is flat to the plate. I'm going to continue to do this until I use that 9.5 foot nautical rope, and when I get to the end, I'm going to make sure after I remove the tape to cut it at an angle so that when we add our next piece of nautical rope, we can blend it in seamlessly. Once you have that hot glue down and you cut at the opposite angle for the beginning of your next rope, you'll just want to hot glue it directly to your angle that you left off with and blend it in together, and then you will not be able to tell where it ended and where the new one started. Then I'll continue to do this around the entire plate until I get to the very edge, and I'll make sure that I go around the outside edging one more time to make sure everything is covered up. I ended up using 2 full 9.5 feet of the nautical rope and then a piece of another one. Then you can cut that end piece at an angle and tuck it in. And now everything is wrapped and you can't see the plate from the front or the sides. Now I'm going to take a lighter and go over it to remove any of the fuzzies since I am going to be drawing on this. This will help to keep my lines nice and crisp. Now I want to make a template for what looks like a flower petal on one of those baskets. So I measured between the center and the outside edge of the plate, and mine ended up being 5.5 inches. I cut that width out on a piece of poster board, and now I am determining how wide I want my flower petal template to be. And I decided it would look good at about 2 inches. So I'm going to cut that down and then hold it in the center of the plate to the edge of the plate and draw 2 curves to create my flower petal template. I labeled the top with a T and the bottom with a B since the bottom is a little bit more open and the top is a little bit more pointed. I'm going to use an oil-based Sharpie, or any Sharpie will do, and I'm going to carefully go around the outline of this flower petal and making sure that I take my time and get down in between each of the grooves of the rope. Then I'll move the plate a quarter of a turn and add another flower petal and continue to do this until I have 4 of those flower petals on the plate. Then using the template to go between 2 of the flower petals, I can outline that up to where those 2 petals meet. And I'll continue to do that around the entire plate between each of those petals that were previously drawn. I'll also go through and make sure I get the edging of the outside of the plate. To create a hanger, I'm using some hot glue, jute rope, and a couple of pieces of ribbon. Now before I show you how that one turned out, let's create our smaller plate. We're going to start off the exact same way with the nautical rope and wrap it around from the center. Then we're going to use some of Dollar Tree's poly rope. You can find this in the automotive section. It does unravel pretty easily, so you want to make sure you glue the end together so it doesn't unravel on you as you're hot gluing it around the plate. I'll wrap that around about 2 times, cut that off at an angle, and start back with the nautical rope again. I'll wrap the nautical rope around 2 times and then add the poly rope 2 more times, and then I can finish the plate off with the nautical rope, making sure that I go to the very edge and then a little past the edge to make sure you can't see the plate from the sides. I'm going to create a hanger on the back just like we did with the first plate with the jute rope, hot glue, and ribbon. And now let's see how we did as far as price comparison. So Pottery Barn's beautiful basket wall art is $399. My version for 2 of them is $8. I think they turned out beautiful, and you can get really creative with the designs that you put on these. But I would love to know what you guys think. Our next piece comes from Pottery Barn, and it is the terracotta wall vase. They're on clearance, but they sell for $26.99 a piece. They are absolutely beautiful, but I think we can come up with something a lot less expensive. In Dollar Tree's school supply section, you can find these pencil holders. They have the suction cups on the back, and they are similar in shape to the terracotta wall vase. They are rounded rather than rectangular, but they have that outside trim piece, and I think they'll be perfect for this project. Now, if you want a nice sleek finish, you could take those outside and spray paint them, but I want to have a little bit more texture on mine, so I'm going to apply 2 coats of white chalk paint and make sure that I get on the inside as far as I can so that these bright colors don't show through. I'll do that for both of these and allow them to thoroughly dry. Now here you can see a little bit of that texture in the paint. Now, because they already have a hole in the back, you could go ahead and hang these on the wall with a nail, or you could also use the suction cups that came with it. They're pretty sturdy. Now you can add your favorite artificial greenery. This is some from Hobby Lobby when they have their sales, and I think these pieces turned out beautiful. So Pottery Barn wanted $53.98 for two, and my faux version is $2.50 for two. And this was so easy to do. So let me know how well I did on project number 3. Let's get started on project number 4. On Kirkland's website, they have an Onyx embossed tile plaque on sale for $22.49. Now, if you saw my previous video, I took some of Dollar Tree's self-adhesive wall tiles and created something very similar. I have a link to that video in my description box below if you're interested in seeing that. But for this project, we're going to use one of these self-adhesive wall tiles that you can find at Family Dollar for $1 and save yourself that quarter rather than getting it at Dollar Tree. We're also using one of Dollar Tree's glass square cutting boards. I'm going to remove those rubber pieces from the bottom and then place the cutting board directly on top of our tile piece to line up our design. Then, carefully using a utility knife, I'm going to score around the outline of the cutting board. Because these have some raised edges and I want a nice clean line, I'm just scoring it with the utility knife and then going over those marks with my scissors. It also has the self-adhesive backing only around the outside edges, holding that backing together, so that's going to come off. So to adhere it to our cutting board, I'm using some E6000 to give it a nice permanent hold. And then I'm just going to place some objects like paint on top of it until the glue seals and sets. Then I'm going to take some black chalk paint and give this one solid coat all over the top of the tile. Using one of Dollar Tree's sponge brushes, I'm going to dab this into some white chalk paint. This is after our black chalk paint has completely dried. And I'm going to carefully go over all of those raised parts of the tile. And you may have to apply 1 to 2 coats. Allow that to dry and then take the black chalk paint and make sure you go around the outside edging of your glass cutting board to give it a nice finished look. I also recommend that you add a sealant like Mod Podge to your paint to protect it from chipping off. Now let's see how well we did. Kirkland's was $22.49, my faux version $2.25. You can hang this on the wall with some command strips, or you could place it in a beautiful picture frame holder like you see here. If you're enjoying today's projects and you would love to see more home decor DIYs on a budget, make sure you click that subscribe button right below this video and the notification bell so you'll be reminded the next time I upload a brand new video. And if you'd like to visit me on all my other social media accounts, all those links are in the description box below. On Pottery Barn's website, they have a gorgeous hanging copper bird bath for $99. If you saw my previous outdoor dollar patio DIYs, then you'll know I created something very similar. If you've already seen this video, you can skip ahead about 4 minutes. But if you haven't, let me show you how I created a faux copper bird bath and bird feeder. We're using one of Dollar Tree's pie pans. It measures 9 5/8 across the top, 7 3/8 across the bottom. 2 of Dollar Tree's chargers. They're 13 inches across the top, and then that indentation at the bottom is 7.5 inches. Once you remove all the labels, I'm going to take some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel and go over all of these pieces thoroughly to make sure they're clean, free from fingerprints, and then allow that to completely dry. Then we're going to head outside, and I'm going to give this 2 coats of Fusion all-in-one metallic copper spray paint. So I searched all over the internet, and several different websites said that acrylic-based paint is safe for bird feeders and bird baths, and Krylon Fusion's copper paint is an acrylic-based paint. Also, the sealant that I will be using is acrylic-based. So I applied several thin coats of the copper paint and allowed that to dry for 24 hours before applying Krylon's Gloss Crystal Clear sealant spray. And I gave that 2 thin coats on all pieces, and I allowed that to dry for 48 hours. Now it gave it this beautiful copper color, and because this is acrylic-based paint, it will be safe for our feathered friends. So I'm going to attach the pie pan to the center of one of the chargers using some E6000 on the bottom of that pie pan. I'm going to center that up, apply firm pressure, and then I'm going to allow that E6000 to set up for another 24 hours before I handle it. Once that has set up, I am going to take 2 of Dollar Tree's 14-inch wire wreath forms, as well as 2 of their metal plant hangers. So these are the metal chains that have the hook at the top, and then they have the clips at the bottom. I'm going to attach these using the clips. By flipping our wreath form over, it's going to be attached to the bottom side, and I'm going to do this in every other section so it will have evenly distributed weight. I'll do that for both of those wreath forms so that when you hang them up and you kind of pull your chains to the center, everything's going to hang nice and even. And then all you have to do is set your charger plate down inside of the wreath form. Now you could attach this to the wreath form with some E6000. I'm not going to do that because I want to be able to take mine out easily and clean it and wipe it off from any debris and then change out the water and the seeds. By the sounds of it, my sweet feathered friends are ready for this gorgeous bird bath and bird feeder. I absolutely love how they turned out. I love this gorgeous copper color. Now let's see how well we did in comparison to Pottery Barn. Theirs is $99, my faux version $6.50, and if you make the bird feeder, that was around $4, so you'd have $10.50 in both. You can find a set of 3 distressed white and black pedestal trays on Kirkland's website on sale for $44.99. Now, there are several different items you can use to recreate this, such as a thrifted cake pan in different sizes, as well as different size metal pails from Dollar Tree. I'm going to be using these leftover plastic containers from last year at Christmas time from Dollar Tree. I like the diameter of these as well as they are more rounded. I'm going to remove the handle from the larger of the plastic containers, and I'm also using Dollar Tree's stove burner covers that come in a pack of 2, a small and large one. Since I am trying to recreate all of these items using Dollar Tree products. You could hand paint these, but I'm going to take mine outside and spray paint them with Krylon Fusion's paint and primer in the color matte white. I'm going to give them 2 thin coats on each side, allowing the coats to dry for about 10 minutes before applying the second coat, and then allowing it to fully dry before we take one of Dollar Tree's sponge applicators and some black chalk paint and go around the rim of the top of each of these containers. It's going to give you a beautiful crisp line. Now my larger container had an indentation between the 2 raised portions, so I'm going to go in between those areas with a paintbrush. Then taking that sponge applicator, you can just pounce it in certain areas to give you that enamel wear look, and you can add as many of these or as little as you like. I'm going to do that for both of the plastic containers. Then using the stove burner covers, I want to create the same crisp line on the rim of the top of each of these covers. So I'm going to use that sponge applicator. And once that dries, we're going to flip it over and add some of those enamel wear designs on it. Again, you can add as many as you like. And then I'm going to add a few little spots here and there to give it more of a worn look. Once both of those are completed and dry, we can attach our bottom and top pieces together. I'm going to use the smaller container for the smaller stove burner cover, and I'm using E6000 and hot glue to hold that in place. So that E6000 is going to give it that nice permanent hold. The hot glue is going to hold that temporarily. I'll do the exact same thing for the large burner cover and allow that glue to set up. Now, I do recommend that you go over it with a sealant like Mod Podge, again to protect your paint. Now, let's see how well we did as far as price comparison. So Kirkland's pedestal trays are $44.99 for a set of 3. My version, $3.25 for a set of 2. Again, you can make as many as you like. I love how this project turned out, and I really hope you guys like it too. Again, on Kirkland's website, you can find a set of 3 of gray speckled vases that are absolutely gorgeous. They currently have them on sale for $37.49, but I think we can recreate something very similar for a lot less. Using 3 different glass jars from Dollar Tree. Now, the smallest one is their candle. You could burn the candle, and once that's finished, you can just use the jar itself. The tallest one comes out of their floral section. And then the medium-sized one is like their milk jug recreation. Although it has like this design on the front, we're going to turn it around and you'll just be seeing the back side of that. I wanted something that was all very similar in design and shape. Remove all of the labels from each of the pieces, and then I'm using this beautiful gray chalk paint that I have listed in my Amazon store, but you can also find it at Hobby Lobby. The color is called Artifact. I'm going to mix that with some white acrylic paint to give me the lighter gray that I'm looking for. I'm going to paint the bottom portion of each one of these jars, and it doesn't matter about having a crisp line at the top. We'll make that crisp line with the dark gray chalk paint. You just want to make sure that you paint it high enough up on each one of the jars, and also make sure you paint the bottom. I'm going to do that for all 3, and it does take 2 coats. So while you're letting that first coat dry, because you've pre-mixed your paint, to keep that paint, you can wrap it in some plastic wrap and it'll keep it nice and fresh so that you can do any type of touch-ups. Now that they are completely dry, we're going to do the top half of each one of these in that Artifact gray chalk paint. There's several ways you can do this. You can tape around it with painter's tape to give you that nice crisp line, but I'm going to use this paint turntable, or you can also use a Lazy Susan, and place your jar in the center. Then dip your paintbrush into your paint, hold your paintbrush steady, and then rotate the turntable around to give you that nice crisp straight line. Then you can just paint the rest of it with your paintbrush. I'll do that for all 3 jars. And I'm also going to make sure that I paint the top rim as well as paint down a little bit on the inside of the top rim, just in case you can see it. Allow those to thoroughly dry, and then we're going to create our speckles. So we're going to place the jar back on the turntable and then use some white acrylic paint and mix that with some water. Now, I did put a little bit too much water. You don't need an excessive amount of water, but you want to be able to tap your paintbrush and create splatter dots. I'm going to do that around each one of these. Make sure again that you get the top and the top inside rim so that everything looks cohesive. Allow your white paint to thoroughly dry, and then we can do the same thing with some black paint. So I'm going to take the black acrylic paint, mix that down with some water. Try to get most of the excess off of your paintbrush, and then you can very gently tap your paintbrush around and create those splattered effects. Once everything is dry, I do recommend again that you go over it with a sealant such as Mod Podge to protect your paint. You can put a gloss Mod Podge on there to give it a nice, beautiful, shiny sheen, or you can leave it in matte. So how did we do in our price comparison? Kirkland's wants $37.49, and our recreation was $3.75. And I think they turned out beautiful. I love this color combination, and I love those beautiful speckles on each one of these jars. Our final recreation will be from Kirkland's website, the set of 3 round metal and wooden base trays that are currently on clearance for $59.97. Using 2 sets of Dollar Tree's bamboo rings that come in a set of 2, my sweet friend Jenny at Lovely Moments Creating sent me these. We're going to put the 2 smaller ones together and the 2 larger ones together. For the base for the smaller one, we're using one of these signs from Dollar Tree. I'm going to remove the hanger as well as all of the labels and then carefully remove the stake that's at the bottom. Then I can remove the paper from the front, and I'm going to take one of those smaller bamboo rings, place it on top, and then trace the outline of the outside of the ring. Then I can very carefully take my utility knife and score around my markings about 3 times, and then I'm able to pop these off and have a nice clean edge. Once we have that cut out, I'm going to take some sandpaper to go over the top portion as well as all of the outside edging to make sure everything's smooth. For the base of the larger bamboo rings, we're using one of Dollar Tree's round glass cutting boards. And I'm going to give each one of these 1 coat of white chalk paint. Allow that paint to completely dry and then take a clean, wet paintbrush, and we're going to apply Waverly Antique Wax. We're only going to apply 1 layer, and we're going to make sure our brush strokes go in the same direction. As it dries, the white will kind of peek through, and it's going to give you a faux wood look. For the rings themselves, we're going to be adding some tumbling tower pieces. For the larger one, we're going to use 6 of those tumbling tower pieces, and for the smaller one, we'll use 5. I'm going to hot glue one end of the tumbling tower piece to the inside of the ring. I'm going to place those around so that they have about the same distance between each piece. Once I have all of the bottom parts of the tumbling tower pieces glued to the inside of the ring, we can then add hot glue to the outside top portion of each one of the tumbling tower pieces. Then we can set our bamboo ring on top of that so that it is flush with the top of the tumbling tower pieces. Press them very tightly and make sure that glue sets. So this is what it's going to be looking like. Each end of the tumbling tower pieces are flush to the end of the bamboo ring. We're going to do the exact same thing for the smaller one, and make sure you remove all of your glue strands or any excess glue. Now we can paint these, and I'm going to paint them with black chalk paint, but you could certainly spray paint these. You just want to make sure you get all the nooks and crannies and all of the sides and edges of those pieces. Now that our beautiful faux wood base has dried, we're going to take the black chalk paint and a Dollar Tree sponge applicator and go around the outside rim of each one of these. Allow that to thoroughly dry, and to seal this in, we're going to use some matte Mod Podge. This is necessary for the glass piece to keep the antique wax from chipping or coming off. And I went ahead and did the small piece so that they would both match. Once that Mod Podge has dried, I'm going to take some E6000 and apply that to each end of the tumbling tower pieces, and then flip that over, set that on top of the base, and then set something like books on it until that E6000 can set up and it gets a nice good seal. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the larger one. Now let's see how we did as far as price. Kirkland's wants $59.97 for a set of 3, and my faux version, although it's only a set of 2, was only $5.50. I think they turned out gorgeous. I hope you enjoyed today's projects and found tons of inspiration. And if you have a favorite, let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. And if you haven't done so already, I'd love for you to click that subscribe button. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.